This episode of Beyond the Backyard is brought to you by Ultimate Archery and Outdoors, Ultimate Deer Products, Edutrax Incorporated, Red Light Flute Pot Seed Company, Tacticam, and by Jay's Sporting Goods. Welcome back to Beyond the Backyard, the show where we talk about the hunt, the stories, and traditions that make up Michigan one of the greatest places to chase whitetails. I'm your host, Steve Kretovic, and today we're going to be talking about buck management in the state. Specifically, there are three big ideas you commonly hear around the campfires, on social media, and even around the dinner table. The one buck rule, antler point restrictions, APRs, and the earn a buck programs, which some states around us have. We'll go over what each one is, how it could work here in Michigan, and the pros and cons. But here's something important before we get too deep into this. I want to make sure there's one thing that's very clear here. You don't have to shoot a big buck to be a real hunter. If it's a spike, a forkhorn, or a fat doe that makes you happy and it's legal, that's your hunt and that's your story, period. Hunting is about enjoyment, not meeting someone else's standards. At the end of the day, I think we get caught up in this mentality that in order to be happy, you have to shoot a big buck. And that's cool. If you're chasing 150, 140, 130, whatever it may be, and that makes you happy, more power to you. If you're someone that gets happy off shooting a doe or a 4-point or a 6-point, and that gets your heart racing, then good for you too. Everyone needs to do what makes them happy. As long as you're being a good, legal, ethical hunter, at the end of the day, that's all that matters. But let's set the stage. So Michigan is blessed with deer. We have over 600,000 hunters, which is a huge number compared to most states. But because of that, we also have one of the highest buck harvest rates in the country. That means a lot of your bucks are harvested young, often at a year and a half old. But if you're into antler size, that's a problem. If you're just into venison, maybe it's not a problem. But the big debate is, should we try to grow more older bucks? And if so, what's the best way to do it? And that's where these three strategies come in. The one buck rule is simple. Instead of 2 buck tags every year, every hunter only gets 1 buck tag. Now, some of the pros of this are, more bucks live to an older age class. Hunters may be more selective. You're not just going to shoot the first thing that walks through if you don't have a backup tag. You're going to be a little more picky in what you shoot. And then other states, like Indiana, Kentucky, have seen a lot bigger bucks after adopting the 1 buck rule. Now, some cons of the 1 buck rule are some hunters love the tradition of taking 2 bucks. Maybe a smaller one for the freezer early and then a bigger one later on. It also could reduce license revenue for the DNR. If you're only buying 1 tag, obviously either they're going to have to increase that 1 tag to compare to what you pay for 2 tags. If they try keeping a lower price, obviously they're going to get less money coming in. So that could be definitely a huge issue when it comes to the DNR or the NRC wanting to incorporate a 1 buck tag. Now, my take, it works for building an older age class quickly, but it's a cultural change, which means sometimes letting a legal buck walk, and that's not easy. And again, that's your choice. You're not a bad hunter if you take that legal 6-pointer on opening morning. If it makes you happy, take it. The 1 buck rule doesn't mean only big bucks. It just means being picky about the buck that you're going to shoot that year. The next type of structure we have is the APR, antler point restrictions. Now, they already have them in place throughout the state in different counties. And the way it works is an antler point restriction sets a minimum number of points on one side before a buck is legal. For example, APRs in Michigan, your first buck has to have 3 or more points on one side, and your second buck has to have 4 or more points on one side. Now, we have definitely seen a huge increase for example, up here in Charlotte County with beautiful bucks being taken. Now, I'm not going to say there's monsters everywhere. I have known at least a couple different people in my friend group that have shot 150-inch bucks. We had a guy that just broke the Charlotte County record a couple years back with almost a 170-inch buck. So there are some monster bucks that are being taken because of the APR that's in place. Now, some of the pros of the APRs is that it protects younger bucks without limiting total buck tags. Over time, it increases buck numbers, mostly being mature bucks, just by really restricting on what you shoot. Now, for example, you still can shoot year-and-a-half-old buck as long as he has 3 on one side. So you are still going to get younger bucks taken, but I think the numbers are quite less as far as what people can shoot. Now, some of the cons of the APRs are it's harder for new hunters to judge antlers. You're running the moment, a buck comes flying through, you think he's got 3 on one side, you shoot him, and next thing you get up there and he doesn't have enough points, and you are shooting an illegal buck. So that is an issue that can be hard for anybody sometimes, but even more so for a brand new hunter. Some areas may struggle to produce bucks that meet the restriction. You know, I've known downstate a guy that showed me this monster 4.5, 5.5-year-old 6-point. Oh no, it wasn't a 6-point. It was a 4-point. And that buck up here would never be able to be shot unless it was a youth hunter, because obviously youth hunters, they are allowed to shoot. They don't have to follow the APR rules here in the state of Michigan. The APR is a nice middle ground. You still get 2 buck tags, but it encourages letting the little guys walk. But here's the key. If that buck excites you and it's legal, shoot it. No social media critic or big buck guy in camp should make you feel bad for taking a buck that made your hunt special. Like I said before, if it gets your heart racing, if it gets you revved up, more power to you. Take it down. That will definitely be a trophy to you. Our next thing I want to talk about is the earn a buck. Now, earn a buck means you have to harvest an antlerless deer before you take a buck. States like Wisconsin, I believe they already have an earn a buck in place. And no, you don't hear this brought up a lot. I hear this in Michigan, different hunters have brought up the idea of doing the earn a buck thing. The pros of earn a buck, it really does help balance the doe to buck ratio, forcing you to take a doe before you shoot a buck. But some people, maybe they don't have barely any bucks in their area. Maybe they see 10 does for every 1 buck. Maybe they see 20 does for every 1 buck. But it also lets more bucks survive to maturity, because you are having to shoot that doe before you shoot a buck. But the cons of that, it can be frustrating. If you see a buck before a doe, now you're sitting there letting a nice buck go because all you have is bucks. Maybe all you have is a high buck ratio in your area and you don't have a lot of does. Now you're letting nice bucks walk by and you can't take them because you're not seeing a doe first. So it's tough for hunters with limited access to doe hunting spots. Like I said, if you do not have the right ratio in your area and you have a bunch of bucks and very little does, you're going to be sitting there waiting all season to have a doe come by before you can shoot a buck. Now, in certain areas, this will work with high deer density, but statewide, it might be too strict. It could be a tool in select zones, but it shouldn't be something that we use everywhere in the state. And I'll say it again, buck management strategies are about herd goals, but hunting is about your goals. The rack doesn't define the memory, the story does. Now, there's no single answer for all of Michigan. You know, the 1 buck rule could work great statewide for building older buck age class. The APRs are perfect for regions that already have hunter support and habitat to grow bigger bucks. And the earn a buck works best in areas with high deer density where we need to take down more does. The real key, hunter buy-in and mutual respect. Whatever system we use, it only works if hunters follow it and support each other. I want to close this podcast with this. There's a lot of pressure out there to only shoot big deer. Social media is full of guys holding 150-inch racks, and that's awesome for them. I'm not hating on them if you want to shoot a monster buck. More power to you. If you have nice bucks in your area and you want to wait and manage your deer and just shoot the big boys, nothing but respect for you. But here's the truth. If your heart starts pounding and your hand starts shaking when a 4-pointer walks out, take the shot. Hunting's supposed to be fun. There's not supposed to be that constant peer pressure on you when you're sitting in your stand thinking, oh man, what are people going to say when I shoot this buck? Man, I'm going to get so much crap from my friends for shooting this buck, or I'm going to get so much stuff. I can't post this online because it wasn't a nice one. And that's the worst thing that can possibly happen. I don't know how many times I see people online that said that are happy. You can clearly tell they're happy with what they shot. But they will constantly start off with, I know it's not the biggest. And I feel bad for those people because, like I said, that they're proud about their buck, but they almost have to give you an excuse because they're setting it up for the people that are going to criticize them for what they shot. With the whole, I know it's not the biggest buck. Be proud of what you shot. Like I said, if it gets your heart pounding, that's what all that matters at the end of the day. We should celebrate all legal harvests. Every deer is a trophy if it means something to the hunter who took it. Buck management isn't just about shaming people into passing deer. It's about finding a balance between opportunity, herd health, and hunter satisfaction. All right, Michigan, it's your turn. Would you pick the 1 buck rule, APR's antler point restrictions, the earn a buck program, or would you pick something completely different that we haven't talked about today? And more importantly, what's your own personal definition of a successful hunt? Join the conversation. Let us know in the comments below. Share your opinions. That's what makes this country so great, is the ability to share our differences without getting in fights. Talk about what you think in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you don't miss all our new videos that'll be coming up here on the channel. This is Steve Kredovic, reminding you to hunt safe, respect the land, and hunt your hunt, whatever that means for you.